On the third floor of a dilapidated hotel, the atmosphere is thick with tension, rancid odors of decay hanging heavy in the air. Flickering fluorescent lights flicker like dying stars, casting grotesque shadows across the corridor as Ben finds himself ensnared in a nightmarish battleground. Once a symbol of luxury, the hotel has become a hellish landscape, its opulence now a distant memory tangled with the rotting forms of the undead that lurch menacingly toward him. With a fierce grip on his moonlight sword, its ethereal glow pulsating ominously in the dim light, Ben stands defiant, an unyielding figure amidst the chaos. Each swing of the sword creates a deadly arc of light, severing limbs and dispatching the undead with a brutal elegance. The horde, insatiable and relentless, is drawn to him like moths to a flame, their grotesque faces twisted in hunger. For every zombie he cleaves in two more surge forward, a mass of rotting flesh and gnashing teeth that threatens to drown him. In the midst of this chaotic fray, Ben feels the sickening crack of a zombie's fist connecting with his jaw, sending him crashing against the wall. Pain radiates through him, clouding his vision with stars, but he shakes off the disorientation, igniting a fire of fury within. He can't afford to be distracted. He knows that the protagonist is locked in a fierce fight against the strongest zombie, a creature that embodies pure malice. Ben's mission is clear. He must buy time, even if it means bleeding for it. The moonlight sword, a weapon forged in legend, shines with a brilliance that pushes back the encroaching darkness. As Ben parries a wild swing from a baseball bat wielded by a nearby zombie, he retaliates with brutal efficiency, severing the creature's arm at the elbow. The blade slices through flesh with a satisfying squelch, blood splattering across the wall like a grotesque piece of art. Yet each victory weighs on him. Fatigue seeps into his muscles, threatening to slow his movements just as another zombie lunges toward him. Suddenly, a sharp knife grazes his side as a foul-smelling undead creature lunges forward, its rotting hand wielding a makeshift weapon. The blade bites into his flesh, but instead of retreating, Ben lets out an enraged roar, the pain igniting a primal fury within him. He can't falter now. He glances down the corridor, searching for the protagonist, whose battle against strongest the zombie rages on just out of sight. Ben knows the protagonist is counting on him to hold the line, to distract the horde long enough for them to strike the fatal blow. With a guttural shout, Ben thrusts forward, slicing through the nearest zombie, the sword singing as it cuts through muscle and bone. He dances among the undead, a deadly waltz of death, using the narrow confines of the hotel corridor to his advantage. He pivots, strikes, and dodges with ferocity, the moonlight sword illuminating the oppressive darkness like a beacon of vengeance. As blood pours from his side, soaking his shirt, Ben wipes the sweat and gore from his brow, the mingling fluids a testament to the brutality of the fight. Each labored breath is a reminder of his mortality, but he pushes through the pain, drawing on every ounce of strength he has left. He knows the protagonist needs just a little more time to finish off the strongest zombie, time that he is determined to provide with his own life if necessary. The cacophony of battle echoes off the walls, the ravenous growls of the undead, the sickening crunch of bone, and the frantic clang of metal against metal. With each moment that passes, Ben feels the urgency pressing down on him like an anvil. He can't allow the horde to overwhelm him. He can't let them reach the protagonist. He digs deep, channeling his focus into every strike, every dodge, and every calculated move, his blood boiling with the thrill of survival. In a moment of desperation, Ben decides to create a diversion. He unleashes a primal scream, a guttural battle cry that reverberates through the hotel, shaking the very foundations of despair. The sound draws the attention of the nearby zombies, who momentarily shift their focus toward him, their vacant eyes glinting with hunger. Seizing the opportunity, he launches himself into the fray, his sword a whirlwind of light and death, each swing infused with a fierce intensity that sends limbs flying and heads rolling. The strongest zombie, meanwhile, looms in the background, its eyes fixed on the protagonist, a predatory gleam in its decaying visage. Ben can feel the tension building, a palpable energy that crackles in the air as he continues to fend off the horde. His sword becomes a shimmering barrier between life and death, each swing a declaration of his refusal to succumb to the tide of decay. As the fight escalates, Ben's resolve solidifies into something unbreakable. He fights not just for his survival, but for the flickering flame of hope that still dares to exist in this world. Every moment he buys is a moment closer to freedom, a chance to reclaim the humanity that has been all but lost. The chaotic dance of battle continues, and with each strike, each parry, and every ounce of determination, he stands firm, embodying the spirit of resilience against the overwhelming darkness, a guardian fighting for hope in a world consumed by despair. And as the screams of the dying echo through the hotel, Ben knows he will not go quietly into the night. He will face the darkness with ferocity, a warrior in a world gone mad, determined to carve a path to salvation, even if it means wading through the blood of the undead. 38 grueling minutes later, Ben finds himself teetering on the brink of oblivion, his body battered and bruised, a canvas of pain painted in vivid strokes. Each breath feels like a jagged shard of glass scraping against his lungs, a relentless reminder of the monstrous toll the battle has taken on him. The moonlight sword, once a source of radiant power, now feels like a cursed weight in his hands, its ethereal glow dimmed to a ghostly flicker, a waning light that mirrors his dwindling strength. As he stumbles toward the nearest zombie, a wave of desperation washes over him, filling him with a fierce resolve. This has to be the last one. Mustering every ounce of willpower, he swings his sword with a primal scream, the blade cutting through the air with a final desperate burst of energy. The sword connects with a sickening thud, severing the zombie's head from its body in a brutal arc of light that sends a spray of grotesque blood and viscera erupting into the air. Time momentarily freezes as the headless corpse collapses in a heap, and Ben too succumbs to gravity, crashing to the floor with a thud that reverberates through his bones. Gasping for air, he feels the metallic taste of blood pooling in his mouth as he rolls onto his back, the coolness of the moonlight sword providing a fleeting comfort against the chaos that encircles him. In that moment of stillness, he dares to hope. I hope that's the last one. But just as a flicker of relief begins to wash over him, the unmistakable sound of multiple footsteps echoes through the corridor, accompanied by the guttural roars of more zombies. Ben's heart plummets into the abyss of despair as the grim realization settles in. You have got to be kidding me. This is how I die, he mutters through clenched teeth, a bitter taste of resignation crawling up his throat. Lying there, nearly paralyzed by pain, each breath feels like a laborious act of defiance. The world around him blurs, shadows of despair creeping in like a suffocating fog. The moonlight sword, once a symbol of resistance and hope, now feels like a shackle dragging him deeper into the abyss of hopelessness as he struggles to move. The roar of the horde grows louder, an ominous symphony of doom that fills the air with a palpable dread. In those final moments as he lays on the cold, unforgiving floor, Ben reflects on the choices that led him to this dark precipice. Memories flicker through his mind like ghostly images, faces of loved ones, moments of laughter, the warmth of life before the world collapsed into this hellish nightmare. He thinks of the protagonist, still locked in a desperate battle against the strongest zombie, perhaps fighting for their life, for both of their lives. He wonders if they will succeed or if his sacrifice will be for nothing. With each approaching footstep, the shadows of the undead loom larger, grotesque forms contorted with an insatiable hunger. Fear begins to claw at his insides, an icy grip tightening around his heart. He feels a dark resignation settling over him, a quiet acceptance that he may not see another dawn. Yet within that acceptance, a flicker of defiance ignites, a primal urge to fight back against the encroaching darkness. He grips the moonlight sword tighter, the metal warming against his palm, a fleeting reminder of the power he once wielded. Come on then, he whispers, his voice hoarse and barely audible above the rising din of the horde. If this is it, then let's finish it. Even as he lies there on the brink of collapse, Ben knows he will not go quietly into the night. He may be battered and broken, but the spirit that has fueled his fight flickers stubbornly within him, refusing to be extinguished. As the first zombie lumbers into his line of sight, its grotesque features twisted in an insatiable hunger, Ben readies himself for one final stand. The moonlight sword, though heavy, transforms into a beacon of his resolve, a last act of defiance against the darkness that threatens to consume him. As the horde closes in, he rises with a ferocity born of desperation, the blade dancing in the dim light. Each swing is a brutal testament to his unwillingness to surrender, a vicious ballet of death and survival. The zombies come at him with mindless hunger, their rotting hands reaching out, but Ben meets them with unyielding fury. Blood splatters, screams mingle with growls, and the corridor becomes a gruesome tapestry of violence and chaos. With every swing, he carves through the horde, severing limbs, shattering skulls, and painting the walls with the visceral remnants of his struggle. The moonlight sword glows brighter with each kill, fueled by his adrenaline and the raw, unfiltered rage that surges through him. Ben knows that he may not emerge from this confrontation alive, but in this moment he is a force of nature, a storm of vengeance against the tide of decay. And as the shadows of the undead close in, he embraces the fury within, ready to unleash a final, devastating blow. Whatever fate awaits him, he will face it with the ferocity of a warrior unyielding, determined to leave a mark on this world, even if it means becoming one with the darkness. The relentless tide of zombies surged forward, a maddening wave of decay and hunger, and Ben felt his strength waning as he fought to stay alive. Each swing of his moonlight sword was fueled by desperation, cutting and slamming a zombie's face into the wall with a sickening crunch. He thrust the blade through the body of another, but the momentary victory was fleeting. The horde was merciless. A baseball bat swung with ferocious intent, striking him hard against the ribs, while fists rained down upon him, blurring his vision until only one eye remained open. The blood trickled from his nose and he staggered, struggling to hold his ground. Just when he thought he could push through, a powerful grip seized him, slamming him against the wall. Pain exploded in his neck and he cried out, agony reverberating through his body. As if sensing his vulnerability, another zombie lunged forward, stabbing him in the leg with a jagged piece of metal. The sharp pain shot through him, anchoring him in place and robbing him of any chance to escape. His voice broke as he cried out in pain, "Just do it. Kill me and get it over with." His words echoed in the chaos, a desperate plea for release from the torment. Pinned down by two relentless zombies, he caught sight of the one approaching him, the spreader. The sight filled him with a dread he couldn't shake. "Take my life," he shouted, tears welling in his eyes, knowing the fate that awaited him if he were to become one of them. "I don't want to become like you." But his body was too battered and exhausted to fight back effectively. The spreader reached out, pulling a white glass orb from its chest, the sinister object glinting in the dim light. Ben's heart raced as the creature grasped his neck, forcing his mouth open, the orb hovering ominously in front of him. Tears streamed down his face, despair washing over him as he realized he was powerless to stop it. Then, just as all hope seemed lost, a wave of fire erupted from the orb, engulfing every zombie in a blazing inferno. The air filled with the acrid scent of burning flesh, and their screams echoed around him, but he remained unharmed. Ben dropped to his knees, gasping for air, confusion flooding his mind as he wondered who had saved him. Turning around, he saw the silhouette of the protagonist emerging from the haze of smoke and flames, their figure glowing with an almost ethereal light. "Ben," they shouted, rushing toward him. "Are you okay? I'm so sorry it took me so long." Relief surged through Ben, the weight of despair lifting momentarily. "I thought it was over for me," he gasped, struggling to push himself up. "You took them all out?" "Yes," the protagonist replied, determination evident in their voice. "I faced the strongest of them one-on-one. I couldn't let you fight alone." Ben felt gratitude wash over him, his heart swelling with the knowledge that he wasn't alone in this fight. "You saved my life." Again he chuckled weakly, the laughter mingling with the remnants of pain. "Sit down and relax for a moment," the protagonist urged, extending a hand to help him. "Use your system to recover. I've unlocked my name too. I'm now level 6 and my name is Isaac." Hearing the name of his savior brought a smile to Ben's face. "Isaac," he echoed, the name feeling like a lifeline. "This is the second time you've saved my life." Time passed as Ben took a moment to breathe, allowing his body to recover from the brutal encounter. The warmth of the flames faded, leaving behind the charred remnants of the undead. With Isaac by his side, he felt the pain begin to ebb, his strength slowly returning. Eventually, the two of them made their way to the first floor, navigating the debris and destruction left behind. Ben had fully recovered now, the aches and pains subsiding as he moved with renewed vigor. They emerged into the open space of the first floor, the shadows still lurking but not as oppressive as before. "All right, Isaac," Ben said, a newfound determination in his voice. "What's the plan? We can't let our guard down." "There could be more out there," Isaac nodded, a fierce glint in his eyes. "We regroup, gather supplies, and find a way to fortify our position. We'll need to be ready for whatever comes next. I'm not letting you face this alone again." With a shared sense of purpose, they set off into the unknown, ready to reclaim their world from the clutches of the undead. Together they would carve a path through the darkness, a duo united against the horrors that awaited them. Ben felt the fire of hope rekindle within him, and for the first time in a long while he believed they could prevail. As Isaac and Ben navigated through the wreckage of the first floor, the atmosphere was thick with the remnants of their harrowing encounters. The oppressive air charged with adrenaline, they exchanged stories, trying to make sense of the chaos that had consumed their lives. "I can't believe you took down that muscular zombie on your own," Ben said, shaking his head in disbelief. "How did you pull that off?" Isaac's grin was fierce, his excitement palpable. "I have this skill that allows me to recover from all pain and battle damage whenever I level up," he explained, his eyes gleaming with a wild intensity. "It's like hitting a reset button, but with a twist. Every time I level up, I come back even stronger." Ben's jaw dropped, his mind reeling. "Wait, what? Recovering all pain and battle damage? That's something you only get when you're on the second evolution. How did you?" Isaac's laughter was edged with embarrassment. "Well, when we were on the second floor, I might have said that was where I woke up, but it was actually the 10th floor. I didn't want to sound like I was bragging, so I just said the wrong floor." Ben let out a short laugh, incredulous yet amused. "So you've been hiding that from me this whole time? No wonder you seem so confident. You were practically a ticking time bomb." "Yeah, well, I figured I'd share it with you once we were in a safer spot," Isaac replied, a smirk on his face. But just as their banner lightened the mood, fate intervened. The air shattered with a sudden crash as a zombie erupted through the door, wielding a brick like a weapon, its grotesque features twisted in malice and hunger. With a feral snarl, it lunged at Ben, smashing the brick directly into his face with a sickening thud. "Ben, get back," Isaac roared, adrenaline kicking in as he leapt between his friend and the monstrous threat. "I know this zombie. He's the one that beat me up earlier. Now it's time for payback." In an instant, metal gloves formed around Isaac's hands, igniting with a flickering flame that danced along the edges, casting an eerie glow in the dim light. The zombie, undeterred by Isaac's transformation, yanked out another brick and began hurling it wildly. The brick flew through the air, but Isaac ducked and weaved, dodging the first brick with an agility that seemed almost supernatural. With a primal roar, he closed the distance, launching a flurry of 4 rapid punches that connected with the zombie's decaying face. Each strike was accompanied by a burst of fire from his gloves, scorching the creature's flesh and sending pieces of it flying in a shower of putrid gore. The zombie staggered back, its eyes wide with shock as it tried to regain its footing. Seizing the moment, Isaac grabbed the zombie by its feet and hoisted it into the air, the creature writhing helplessly. With a vicious grunt, he slammed it down onto the ground, the impact sending shockwaves through the floor and creating a sickening crunch as bones shattered beneath the weight. Without hesitation, Isaac mounted the fallen zombie, his fists a blur as he rained down brutal punches, each one landing with devastating force. Blood splattered across his face as he unleashed his fury, the cathartic release of pent-up frustration manifesting in every brutal blow. The zombie's grotesque form began to disintegrate, its features contorting in agony as Isaac continued his relentless assault. "Feel this," Isaac shouted, his voice rising above the chaos, each punch punctuated with raw aggression. The creature's body crumpled under the ferocity of Isaac's onslaught, limbs twisting at unnatural angles until all that remained was a smoldering pile of burning blood and charred flesh. the air filled with the acrid scent of destruction. Isaac stood up, panting heavily, his chest heaving with exertion as he surveyed the aftermath of his fury. "Now that's what I call revenge," he exclaimed, a triumphant grin spreading across his face, a stark contrast to the carnage around them. Ben, still reeling from the shock of the sudden attack, nodded slowly, awe and admiration flooding his senses. "That was insane, Isaac. You didn't just defeat him, you completely obliterated him." Isaac brushed off his gloves, the flames flickering down to embers. "Thanks, but we can't afford to let our guard down. There are bound to be more zombies lurking around, and this isn't over yet." "Right," Ben agreed, shaking off the disorientation as adrenaline surged through his veins. "Let's keep moving. We can't let our guard down after that. We need to be ready for anything." With a renewed sense of purpose and a bond forged in the fires of battle, the two men pressed forward, prepared to face whatever horrors awaited them. They were no longer just survivors. They were warriors, united in their fight against the undead. Each step was a declaration of their resilience, a testament to their determination. And together they would carve a path through the chaos, reclaiming their world one brutal encounter at a time. As Isaac and Ben stepped out of the hotel, the oppressive weight of their recent encounters hung heavily in the air, thickening the atmosphere around them with an unsettling tension. Isaac turned to Ben, a flicker of hope igniting in his chest. "We need to get something to eat," he suggested, attempting to reclaim a sense of normalcy in the chaos that had become their lives. But that moment of levity shattered like fragile glass as Ben suddenly froze, a visceral dread flooding through him. An insidious, malevolent force loomed in the shadows, radiating an insatiable bloodlust that sent chills racing down his spine. Sweat prickled at his brow, panic clawing at his insides, urging him to flee. "Isaac," Ben stammered, his voice trembling with urgency. "We need to get out of here now." Isaac, noticing the drastic shift in Ben's demeanor, turned toward him, concern etched deep into his features. "Ben, are you okay? What's wrong?" he asked, his voice thick with worry. But the urgency of the moment drowned out his words. Ben struggled to process Isaac's concern. The overwhelming sense of impending doom was suffocating. Behind him, something grotesque stirred, a dark shadow that slithered and writhed, sending waves of terror crashing through his body. It felt like a predator honing in on its prey, and he was the target, exposed and vulnerable. "Isaac, turn around," Ben shouted, desperation clawing at his throat like a wild beast. But Isaac, caught in his own confusion, turned his back to Ben, gazing upward at a foreboding shadow twisting ominously against the backdrop of the dying sun. "Do you see that thing up there?" he asked, pointing at the dark shape that loomed like a harbinger of doom, oblivious to the danger creeping closer. In that instant, a flash of steel sliced through the air, and a blade plunged into Isaac's back and come out his chest with a sickening thud. His eyes widened in shock as he felt the cold steel tear through flesh, blood erupting from his mouth as he dropped to his knees, the world spinning around him. "Why?" Isaac wheezed, confusion and betrayal flooding his voice. His gaze locked onto Ben, the horrifying realization crashing over him. The man he had saved not once but twice was now the very embodiment of his doom. With a chilling calmness, Ben pulled the sword from Isaac's back, the blade glistening ominously in the dim light, a grotesque trophy of his treachery. "Thank you for buying me more time," he said, his voice devoid of warmth, echoing with a darkness that had taken root in his heart, a reflection of the abyss that now separated them. Before Isaac could process the betrayal, Ben stabbed the blade back into him, twisting it savagely as if savoring every moment of Isaac's suffering. The pain was excruciating, a betrayal that felt like a dagger carving out his very soul. Isaac could only watch in horror as Ben's face remained cold, an expression of indifference mingled with a twisted satisfaction that shattered everything they had fought for. With a brutal kick, Ben sent Isaac's body crashing back into the hotel, where the air felt suffocating, thick with an unscrambled, chaotic presence that pulsed with malevolence. It was a darkness that beckoned him, promising not just power, but a release from the shackles of fear. Without a second thought, Ben turned and sprinted away from the hotel, the weight of his actions pressing down on him like a shroud of regret. yet somehow exhilarating. Isaac lay there, gasping for breath, disbelief coursing through him like poison. How could the man he had fought beside betray him so completely? Blood pooled around him, warm and sticky, and the world began to blur into a haze of pain and betrayal. The realization cut deeper than any blade. He had trusted Ben, and now that trust lay shattered like the remnants of their friendship. In that moment of despair, a familiar voice sliced through the fog of agony. "Hey you actually made it outside." It was her, the girl in the yellow coat, a specter of his nightmares now manifesting in his darkest hour. Her presence was both unsettling and oddly comforting, an enigma wrapped in shadows. With a cool detachment, the girl in the yellow coat looked down at Isaac, her expression inscrutable. "Your friend betrayed you and ran away," she stated matter-of-factly, as if recounting a mundane event, the finality of Ben's treachery solidifying the pain coursing through him like a relentless tide. Isaac's heart sank at her words, the truth of Ben's betrayal wrapping around him like a noose. "Help me," he whispered, desperation lacing his voice as he felt the life ebbing from his body, the darkness creeping ever closer. But instead of an answer, the girl knelt beside him, her hand resting gently on his head. "You've suffered enough," she murmured, her voice a melodic whisper that seemed to resonate with the very fabric of his being. And with that touch, everything around them began to dissolve into a mist of shadows, the remnants of his betrayal fading away. In an instant, Isaac felt a strange warmth envelop him, a sensation that contrasted sharply with the cold grip of death. Then, just as suddenly, they vanished into thin air, leaving behind the broken remnants of betrayal and bloodshed. Where they would end up, Isaac could not fathom. But as the darkness wrapped around him, he felt a flicker of hope, a chance to escape the nightmare that had become his reality. In that moment, he realized that perhaps this girl, once a source of terror, might be the key to his survival, leading him toward a destiny far beyond the treachery he had just endured. The shadows whispered promises of vengeance, and as Isaac felt himself slipping away, he understood that his journey was far from over. It had merely transformed, and the darkness that had sought to consume him might just become his greatest ally. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your support. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more content like this. Don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing from you. Thank you so much again.